Hey everyone, welcome to day 5, and this is your first day with Microsoft Excel. So down in your search bar at the bottom, type in EXC, and that should bring up your Excel app. It's green, it's got a little X on it. Microsoft Excel is part of the Microsoft Office suite, which also has Word, which we just finished your poster with, and PowerPoint, which you will use in the next year or two in ISB. And it also has programs called Access and Publisher. So here's the main screen on Excel. When you come in here, you'll see it's called a book. So the reason that Excel calls their files books is because down here at the bottom you have sheets. When you hit the little plus sign, you can add more sheets or pages. So one Excel book can hold however many pages you want. Now, I happen to use Excel and its Google counterpart, Google Sheets, a lot myself because I like to stay pretty organized. So, for example, my husband is the head coach of a softball team for the Indiana Shockwaves. We had to figure out how much money each player would owe for their fees based on what tournaments we were going to play in. So we have a header, it's color-coded, these are the different fees they have to pay, like this is the uniform packet, indoor rental, outdoor rental, team equipment, sports recruit software. And then down here we have tournament fees, registration and insurance for 3 different sanctions, things like that. We have over here those fees, again, how much they cost, broken down by registration and insurance, combined costs. And then in this book, we have a second sheet, and this is their tournaments they're planning on going to. The date it happens, where it happens, the cost, and then if you program it right, you can get Excel to add all that up for you so you don't actually have to do any of the math for yourself. So Excel is one of those things that you can definitely use it later in life, should you choose. So we'll go back to Excel. So we're going to start off pretty simple, and if we look over at our module for Swanigan Day 5 Intro to Excel, first things we're going to do is learn what a book versus a page is, and that's what we just went over. The whole thing is a book, and each sheet at the bottom is a different page. Next is what a cell is and how to navigate between them. So in Excel, you see all these little boxes. Each box is one cell. Cells are determined, like if you've ever played Battleship, the board game. If I click into this cell, this is cell A1, because this is column A and this is row 1. So if I click over here somewhere, it kind of highlights the O in gray and highlights the 22 in gray, and tells me right here, I am in cell O22. Now, you can move through cells by clicking with your mouse, or you can move cells with your arrow button. But the fastest way to move through Excel is to get it to understand what you're trying to do. So if I'm typing in headers like A, B, C, I need to hit the Tab button, which is kind of the top left corner of your keyboard, between each thing. Now, if I used my arrow buttons, if I were to hit Enter, I would go into cell E2. But since I used my Tab button, my Enter is going to return me to the beginning of A2 again. So now I'll show you if I use my arrow buttons, so A, right arrow, B, right arrow, C, and then hit Enter, it just goes straight down into C3. Not a big deal if you're not entering a ton of data, but like when I was doing that Shockwave spreadsheet, it saved me a lot of time by knowing how to navigate Excel rather than having to constantly use my arrows to move to the cell I wanted to be in. So these are your cells, and that's how to navigate between them. Next, it says how to enter data and what kind of data cells can accept for graphs. So I typed numbers in here, or letters in here, but Excel is really a program that works best with numbers, like the spreadsheet I used to figure out the budget for the softball team. So if I decide I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3, and I delete the rest of them, and then I want to type in blue, red, green, and let's say I wanted it to graph, and I wanted it to say there was 1 blue, 2 red, 3 green. I would have to choose my data and then insert a graph. And it didn't work because I put my numbers before I put my letters. So rather than retype all my words, I'm just going to delete that whole column A and try again. Highlight my numbers, insert a graph. And it worked this time. Excel is extremely picky on what it understands how to do, and it always wants your words before your numbers. Now, let's say I wanted a chart, and instead of typing the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, I wrote the words. All of my chart disappeared, because Excel doesn't understand how to graph words. Even if the words are the words for the number, it only understands how to do numbers. So I put my numbers back in, and my graph comes back. How to change the formatting in a cell. So Excel tries to be smart sometimes, and it tries to understand if you put in a number, what kind of number you're talking about. So if I type in the number 1.5, I can right-click and go to Format. These are all the different kinds of numbers that Excel will recognize. So General means it doesn't have a specific number format. Excel is going to pick whatever it thinks is best. You've got numbers, which is always going to add 2 decimal places, and you can change that to whatever you want. If you want it to be currency, so if I type in a $sign and 150, but then I decide to go back up, see how the $sign's not up here anymore? Excel automatically formatted that cell to be a number, or to be currency now. We come back down, we've got accounting. Again, that's a lot like currency because most accountants deal with money. Dates, times, percentages, fractions, scientific notation, which is usually when you're using exponents. Text, if you want the number to appear, if you want Excel to think the number's a word. You can choose special things, and then you can customize your own. Okay, for the most part, we're going to stick with numbers. So if you ever type something in, like if I type in that today is August 7th of 2020, and then I decide, oh, I don't want that to be a date, I want that to be that it's 10:30 p.m. And oh, I changed my mind again. I want that to be $9.50. It goes back to the last thing it recognized, which is January 9th of 1900 at noon. It doesn't make any sense at all, but you would actually have to manually go in and format that back to a number. And then all of a sudden your number will reappear. We already did the first set of data in to create a graph, which was our 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to add to your Google slide. So what I would like you to do on your own is pick anything that you want to make a graph out of. So say you want to say, and for science, math, social studies, reading, and language arts. And I'm going to graph my grade percentage. So I've got a 98, a 92, an 85, a 100, and I really bombed the language quiz, so I have a 70 in that class. We're going to highlight all your data, which you can either do by holding your left shift button and dragging, or I use my shift arrow buttons. Insert. You can pick whatever type of graph you want. And then you can change it by just clicking through and choosing a different one. So that's your job today. Make any kind of graph you want, put a snip of it into your slides, and then you don't have to save it for tomorrow.